Okay. Okay. So, welcome to Alexandria RPG. Hopefully, you know who we are. We're the non-profit role-playing game library. We travel around to events. We share role-playing games with as many people as we can in person. And over the last, 18 months or so, doing it online with these events. So, I'm your chief librarian, David, and today we are sitting down with Christian, or better known as CG, from CZRPG. And I'm going to stumble over that the entire time, I swear. If you'd like to introduce yourself real quick there, Christian.
Yeah, so David and folks from Alexandria RPG, so thanks for this opportunity. It's really nice to be able to talk to you. And yeah, so CZ is my initials, right? I have a German name which starts with Z. It's very hard to pronounce, so CZ is fine, or Christian, that's all right. But I'm not only a cartographer, though this is maybe what I am most known for. I am also a publisher. So CZRPG actually publishes 5e products. It's mostly PDFs, but we have a physical book coming soon. And the idea with CZRPG is to provide great content, right? Because this is like the basic promise we want to do. But we want to present this content in a very beautiful way. And we want to help people save prep time and impress their players. And by impress their players, we do this through beautiful artwork and also gorgeous maps. So one of the core strategies of CZRPG is actually having a lot of maps in the products and good quality maps. And this is how you came to know my work, right, through my maps. But I also publish content. Not I don't write all the content. I did I did write a lot of stuff, but I also work with different writers to put stuff out. So this is basically CZRPG. And then in 2018 they released Torment 20, which is Tormenta 20 for 20 years of the setting and of the system. It is a D20 system, very similar to third edition. It's also high power level and lots of combos and there's the own wording setting, and it's very popular here. Some folks play Pathfinder 2, and other systems, but like the biggest one is still D&D, even in Brazil as well.
I don't think I've heard of Torment. Why that one doesn't ring a bell right offhand, which is kind of crazy to me.
It's not so small actually. If you check the ORR report from Roll20, you can see there with like 0.62%. But it's still there. Like some other games are listed in other categories or other games. This one is there, but it's really mostly in Brazil. So probably that's why you may not have heard it.
Yeah.
But their funding in 2018 in Brazil was like 2 million of our currency, which was at the time the record funding for the whole country. But nowadays there have been like 8 million bigger ones, but at the time it was the biggest. So
that's awesome. I'm gonna have to get my hands on that. Maybe we can see if we can, especially if we can get a Portuguese language version edition to give to or put in the library. So we gotta see if we can work out to get a copy.
Yeah, sure. Just contact me afterwards. I can refer you to the people.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Well, today's been a crazy day. We're having connectivity problems. We're having video problems.
Frame rate
yeah, exactly. Nothing's wanting to go right. So looks like for a little while here on the stream, the lovely people will get to see my letter D pulsate as I speak versus seeing my actual face. Let's see. So we've talked briefly about what projects you have coming up. Before we started streaming, I talked to you about what was your first RPG you played, and you said you was AD&D. So was it a second edition or was it first edition?
No, it was the second edition,
Second edition.
1999. It's been a while.
I was I had been playing for a while by then too. 1999. So here in North America, well, kind of North America and Europe, 1999 is when basically the game RPG industry collapsed. Wizards of the Coast had just bought out, like a couple years prior, had just bought out TSR. Had just been bought, and they had just been bought out by Hasbro, and basically everybody that was trying to jump into RPGs in the 90s almost all died. So 1999 was a very dark year for RPGs, the industry.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of anything on the industry at the time. I was just like, so a colleague at the 8th grade invited me to play, and I said, let's play. And we never I won't say I never stopped, because for maybe a couple of years I did stop. Because of stuff that happened, we kind of lost the group, but then we found each other again, and since then we never stopped. So it's been, I'm talking about when, I think 2009, I guess. Since then we never stopped again after the pause. So it's really nice hobby. RPG is cool.
Yeah.
I think you might have muted yourself. I'm not sure. I think.
Awesome.
You're back.
Yay.
The battery?
No, just.
David, I think you seem to be far. I think you're far. I'm not sure. We hear you very, very far away. It's like you are like very far. Ooh, yeah. We know you're talking, but we can't understand you. It's too low. Yeah. Okay. You know, I work with IT, and I mean, if there is something,
no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, I can't do anything else. I swear.
Now it's fine. So I think you were asking about AD&D second edition AD&D. Yeah.
Oh, well, we were briefly talking about how the industry was kind of collapsing at that period. Yes. Well, then you said you had a little break, and then you've kind of been nonstop since 2009, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I was kind of talking about how RPGs can be great for just continually bringing people together, because it's not like a video game where everybody's trying to jump on and take on the next whatever, or you gotta have connectivity. You can just once a week get some people come over and have that personal interaction that you just don't get from other gaming. And as much as I love board games don't give you quite the same interaction as video games do. True. I mean, as RPGs do. Excuse me.
Yeah. I'm also I kind of like board games, but I don't play that much. I also prefer TTRPG.
Yeah, we've got an entire shelf full of board games, and we rarely play them. But it might also have something to do with having an RPG library that kind of absorbs a boatload of our time.
We don't have enough time to do everything we would like to do.
Exactly. Like, how much time do you have in your day? Not enough. Oh, okay. I understand that one.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Tinkering with trying to get video back. I have a silly little. That's. Well, it's just frustrating.
I was mentioning that I work with IT, and I know that IT has nothing. It can be very random.
Yeah, you're like,
So
this literally was working yesterday. Why is it not working now?
because technology, that
Yeah,
in Brazil we call. Oh, now we can see you.
yeah. I have a. This is a horrible little 1080p webcam that somebody was going to throw away.
It's working.
I'm all washed out, but hey, I'm here. In
Nice.
fact, I can. Oh, there. Oh, geez, there we go. Go from nice, expensive camera to with expensive lens that all of a sudden computer doesn't want to play nice with. But anyways, I'm alive, and you can see I have RPG stuff all in the background. There's books here and there and more there.
Flags.
And, yeah, that's from I worked in a multi-national organization in Iraq. So we had one Brit, one French, a bunch of Americans, and a bunch of Australians. So somebody made the flag with our little logo on there. It's a spearhead and an eagle. It's tough to see, but
Nice.
and that was a lot of fun. I always like working with other nations. So just got to do the thing down in or I was in Ukraine, which we worked with Canadians and Brits, training up Ukrainians.
Yeah, and in this TTRPG space, you can really interact with people from all over the globe.
Absolutely, and that's actually one of the cool things is people have been doing it for years, working with people from other nations, because especially it's funny. We look back to we have a manuscript from a game that was made in the early '80s, and one of the designers was in the UK at the time. He was an American, but he was living and working in the UK, and he put the manuscript together and mailed it back to the US. I mean, even back in the day, people from other countries were working together, but they had to mail the physical copies around. Like, hey, here's a rough draft. Can you look through this and tell me what's wrong? And then takes 3-4 weeks to get to the person. Then they have to sit down and go over it. Then they make all their edits or whatever. Then they put it in a box or an envelope and mail it back. So now it's like, hey, here's a Google Drive or a Dropbox link or whatever. Can you look through this real quick and tell me what you think? It's near instantaneous.
It's a bit easier now.
It is, and with everything that's happened the last couple of years, people have turned towards things like Roll20 and other virtual tabletop software to one, start playing again, but then it gives them the ability to not only play together but collaborate on things. Look how many people are working from home and doing Zoom calls, and they still have way too many meetings that could be emails.
Yeah, but you know what you said about when you're talking about the pandemic, right? And not only VTTs boomed a lot, but it also helped everyone who was doing virtual maps. So one of the reasons why I created CZRPG and why CZRPG is, I'm still rather new, but I'm very, very glad on how things are going. And one of the reasons is because virtual maps have become highly popular now because of VTTs. So everyone wants maps more than they needed or wanted before, because physical maps are kind of expensive. Right? You want to print a map, costs a lot of money, but now you can get tons and tons of digital maps. All you need is a hard drive, which is much cheaper.
Yeah, well, and everybody's got a cloud account of some way, shape, or form now.
Yeah.
So that goes into we had a couple questions that were thrown out to us before we started. So uh, one is, you create a number of maps specifically for use with Fantasy Grounds. How do the tools your maps get used in change how you create your art?
Hmm. Actually, this fantasy ground, that's something that is mostly on the end guild because there are some converters. I work with Greenpress and they convert a lot of my content, including
Mm,
maps. So I usually create the maps and then afterwards they get converted. For now, it has been only fantasy ground. So I never like um, specifically thought about the target virtual tabletop. For Roll20 is very simple. You need usually a version under 5 MB because the free Roll20 account only accepts 5 MB. So
oh, I
I
actually didn't
usually,
even know that.
yeah, you cannot have more than five, and then on Plus I think it's 10, and maybe on Pro it's more than 10. But anyways, so I always put a lower resolution file with my maps. So there I call it Roll20,
Yeah.
and then there's Fantasy Grounds. But now because of the Kickstarter, I have people converting for um, Foundry, Foundry, and also Roll20, and there will be Fantasy Grounds and Shard. So my Kickstarter will be on four
Wow.
VTTs. So yeah,
Nice. Yeah, we've been pretty lucky, and Roll20 gave us a bunch of pro accounts. So people that do work with the library. So I'll be honest, I've never played with the free basic Roll20 account, so I
hmm
don't know all the limitations of them. And I'll be honest, I also don't know all the things that I can do on them because all of the virtual tabletops have just so many awesome tools,
yeah,
and once you start learning them, the learning curve is just like this. Like you're like, I know nothing. Oh my god, I had.
it's
It's like throwing a person in front of Linux the first time. You're like, oh, I got. Oh my god.
yeah. I have a Plus, and I never tinkered with dynamic lights, so I don't know how to use dynamic lights yet. So uh, it's like you said, there's so many features. Lack the time to learn them.
Yeah, we've got so many good people that have been helping me out in the library with it, and I'm trying to do 100 different things. So sitting down and trying to learn all the stuff for Roll20, and people are like, oh, you should use this and this and this, and I should use Fantasy Grounds. I'm like, I'm struggling to learn one, let alone try to wrap my brain around all the different programs that are out there. like, I would love to support them all, but literally I just can't. I don't have enough hours in the day or enough brain cells to commit to it.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
it's funny because people are like, oh well, it's like running this is kind of like people like kind of come at me the same way they do like artists. Like, oh, you're just drawing, and oh, you're just playing role playing games. Like, no, literally I play hardly any role playing games. The only
There's no
time I
time
really
to
get
play.
Exactly. About the only time I get to play is the one shots I run at events, and the rest of the time is doing just administrative stuff. So
Yeah.
there's so much behind the scenes. So you, you've got a successful Kickstarter that you're trying to finalize.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the struggles that you've had with that so far, besides shipping, because that's everybody's struggle right now?
Yeah, I actually haven't gotten to shipping yet because I'm still on the PDF side, but I did have one major issue, which was I wanted to offer printed maps, but like this was my first Kickstarter, so I had no experience with all this kind of stuff. So I quoted with a lot no, but maybe four different printers, and they all gave me a similar price. And after I finished the Kickstarter, I quoted again with more specific information, and they started to ask me questions they didn't ask me the first time. And and then I found out that they didn't understand my requirements, and I also didn't understand they had not understood what I needed because the first quote I got, the updated one, was for 100,000 and dollars, and my funding was $50,000. So I mean, there is no way. This is
Yeah.
like double the amount. Won't work. So basically, there was an issue about offset printing. I offered 64 maps, and I found out that for each map there would be needed one plate. And even though I needed 7,000 maps printed, it was only maybe 100 of each, meaning that it's not enough quantities, and this brought the price up a lot. And it was on a Friday when I finally realized that. And I kind of I realized that this is going to be like a negative. If I go through with that, it's going to be a negative, and I was really sad on that day. But then I talked with a lot of people, and I decided to take a very difficult decision, and I decided to communicate very transparently, and I refunded that amount of everyone who got printed maps. Most people, I would say 99% of the people were very supportive and understanding. So it was nice to see this. But it did cost me some money to refund, because on top of the actual refund, I had to pay some fees from Brazil. So this was the major hiccup so far, having to deal with a refund on my first KS. But it will end up fine, but it's not what I was expecting. Just
Yeah. Well, and it's not because I'm glad that you brought that up, because you did the right thing. You took the hit by refunding everything, and there's been shady people in the past, like, oh hey, we can't get X, Y, and Z done. We apologize, and then just drive on. Like, well,
no,
uh,
I couldn't
yeah.
imagine doing this.
On my personal Kickstarter account, I've backed like almost nothing, and one of the things I backed was a board game. I didn't even care about the board game. I just wanted the models, and the sculpts were gorgeous. And then 2 years later, it's like, oh well, we can't afford the costs, and just every time he came around, it was just a new excuse. And then out of nowhere, he's like, I have another Kickstarter project I'm working on. He's like, time out. It's been years now. I'm like, at this point, I don't want my money back. I mean, I would, but just give me the 3D files, and I'll find somebody to print them on my own. I just want the models. I don't want your game.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, and you get shady people like that really make it tough to take the leap and support people sometimes. And then
It's a
the
shame.
frustrating thing is, sometimes when you're dealing with people from other countries, like, well, what recourse do I have? It's because you're in Brazil, so if someone else was creating a product in Brazil and did the same thing, would I I go through Kickstarter, and Kickstarter's like, oh, sorry, we can't really do much for you there.
Yeah, and there's even a clause, right? When you back, there's something you need to tick, saying that you understand the risk. So it's difficult.
Exactly. It is. And and on Mondays when we do news, we talk about Kickstarters and stuff, and I tell people, I was like, just because I'm talking about a Kickstarter that we found, or something on itch.io or something, it's not us necessarily supporting this. I will tell people whether or not the library has backed it, or if it's somebody that we know and trust that has made that Kickstarter, because we know people. And some people reach out, they'll show me basically a completed game, like, hey, we're going to Kickstarter for art and the cost of print, that's it, everything else is complete, and I get to look through the product. So when I get those, I will let people know, like, look, this is basically a finished product. You're at much less of a gamble. And then there's other ones that you're like, they got a couple pieces of art, looks awesome, I hope it's awesome.
Yeah, in my Kickstarter, I offered as a preview like a 46-page PDF for free, with like very beautiful art and all the maps. So it was a really strong preview, and I also put to show people that all we need is like do 7 more of these, because it's 8 locations. So we delivered 1 full location, and so people could see that we know how to do this stuff. We just need to do the rest now. And and also put a stat card of CZRPG So people, like a lot of people don't know who CZRPG is. So I put a stat card showing like how many sales we had, like medals and products, so people can see that it's the first Kickstarter, but like we have dozens and dozens of products. Actually, at the moment, CZRPG has 200 titles, and half of them are bestsellers. So there
Nice.
are 100 medals so far. So, so yeah, I mean, it's not like we just because it's the first doesn't mean they don't know how to do it. But the problem is to identify those who know and those who don't. This is
We
the
got to find
trick.
you a way to get good, reliable, cheap printing, um, so the so that the people that want to grab your maps in physical form can do so.
I have an idea for the next one because I need to get this fixed for the next one. I will probably do a book with maps. So instead of individual maps, I will do a book like others have done. So it's
Yeah,
going to be like a big book that you open and but the maps will need
yeah,
to be a
and you
bit
can lay
smaller.
flat. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
they need to
yeah,
be a
you'll
bit smaller.
yeah, so you'll do kind of long maps. It's just 2 pages, um,
Yeah, exactly.
and make sure the book sits this way, not this way. Um, this way you'll
Yeah,
get really long maps, but the book that sits this way doesn't sit on anybody's shelf. So this way you won't have as long of a map, but it'll sit on like a normal book, sit on
yeah.
people's shelves. Uh,
One of the problems actually was I wanted to offer big maps, so most of my maps were 30 by 40, and that's an inch. So that's like 1 meter per 75 centimeters. So that's basically 30 inches by 40 inches, which is huge.
it's
And
yeah.
this was a problem as well for
Well,
printing.
maybe we can find you a good printer that will do a giant coffee table book and just you can lay
Yeah,
out like an old school atlas that you'd see in school from the
yeah,
60s and 70s.
that would be nice.
Um,
But I'll get it sorted, of course. I accept any suggestions, but I need to have this for the second one.
yeah,
I can, yeah.
yeah, and so, there's definitely a thing about having that physical product for the people that want it. Like for the
Hmm.
library, there's been a handful of games I know are completed, and I've talked about them to people, but the library hasn't backed them because there was no physical product available, and
Yeah.
I can't put a PDF in the library. It just doesn't work. Uh,
Yeah. Oh, so something that might look really nice, and I'm not saying this only because I am making it, of course, also, but something that is actually very true, and I've seen a lot of people getting impressed. This book, Amazing Counter and Places, which is my Kickstarter, it's going to look really beautiful. The art, well, you can see here, right? This is an example, but the book is going to be filled with like awesome artwork. It's not only content, right? Of course the content will be good as well, but I'm talking about artwork. I want this book to be an eye candy. Yeah, so that's why I'm going for like beautiful artwork, and I really, this is something I have found out that works for me, and I think for other people as well. Talking about like there are many ways to achieve success in TTRPG, right? Uh, Great content is the basic premise. So that's like you have to have great content. So there's no other way. So I don't consider this like something different. So you have to have this. This is a minimum requirement. Two other things can help you a lot, like great presentation and great marketing. If you have a great marketing and like very good presentation, you will attract a lot of eyes to uh, nice and beautiful things, and then this will match really well. And to me, this strategy has been working well to do
it,
both of these things.
it's funny because this ties in. We had an artist on last week, so he did a lot of the art for Numenaria, stuff like that,
Oh,
and
nice.
then the week before that we had a game designer on, and something I always try to emphasize to new developers, like, oh hey, you can design a game, but you need it to look good. So invest
Hmm.
in good art, and honestly good maps as well, because it so often you look through the history of RPGs, you can find some great games that just looked horrible, so nobody bought it, and then you find games that were just stunning, like just they had an amazing art director who put together a wonderful package, and you read through, you're just like, oh, these rules are abysmal. How is this a game? I mean, to be honest, second edition AD&D wasn't the best game on the market, but it was one of the most beautiful games on the market.
Yeah. And this is why I say that great content is a basic premise, because if you have great presentation and great marketing, a lot of people will see your game, but after a while the strategy will fail, because if the game isn't good, then they will not continue supporting you. So that's why you need all three of them.
Yeah. And back in the day, they were able to, they'd put out a core rule book, they'd sell a bunch, and then maybe put out a couple of expansions and it would die. But yeah, nowadays, if you want to create a consistent, an ongoing product, you've got to support it with not only the aesthetics, but you've got to have a good product all around. But if you've got a great game, nobody's ever going to see it if it looks bad.
And then these are all two aspects. It's the third one is one a lot of creators struggle, is marketing. Marketing is not an easy topic, and a lot of people don't know how to go about them, or they don't even want to know about it. And it's complicated, because without marketing, it's really, really hard to move on as a publisher, or because people will not know about your great stuff.
And it's so funny, because we tell artists all the time they need a business manager, someone that understands those numbers, and if they struggle with marketing, go get somebody to help you with social media, because just throwing your photos or videos or pictures or whatever on social media, you're just lost in a sea. You've got to understand how to target. You got to understand how to buy the ads. So creative people aren't necessarily the best at running a business. So sometimes you got to find that business partner to help you get your good product, your creative thing, in front of more eyes, so that more people will buy it and help you out. So you have a Patreon. What are some of the things that you offer on your Patreon?
Patreon content was an idea that come out from the Kickstarter. So I'm doing very similar structure as I've done in the Kickstarter. Basically, every month we offer one location. So this is something I haven't mentioned about the Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter is basically 8 drop-in locations. So you have 2 forests, 2 mountains, 2 swamps, and 2 coasts. They have lore, they have a plot, they have encounters, maps, creatures, NPCs, items, everything. You just need to drop in your world. So if you don't have inspiration at the moment, or if you don't have time to world build, like, drop this and you have a ready content. So the Patreon is the same thing, on a smaller scope. So we offer a location. So far we are in the 3rd one. This month is actually a really cool one. The other ones were cool, but this one is different. It's the Cloud Cave. So it's basically some earth moats, flying island, and there is a bigger moat, bigger island with a small complex of caves, and there is a rare fungi that grows there that can be used to create potions of flying. There's a whole plot around it and stuff like that. But so you can just put this anywhere in your world, and then we offer encounters which can be tied with a plot, and they become an adventure if you want. Not mandatory. You can run them independently, most usually. So this is basically what we do. We offer also 1 creature per month, a new one, and we have custom artwork, meaning that we commission 1 art piece per month, and we put all this in a beautiful PDF with other stock art, because we can't commission all the pieces because it's too expensive. And so basically it's almost like an adventure, but if you don't want the adventure, just run the encounters independently. Location, lore, creatures, and this is like content for I would say 6 hours a month of play.
Nice.
And
Yeah, I was
maps, of
looking.
course, maps.
Yeah, and of course maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I pulled up your Patreon and you got $3, $5, and $7 tiers. So and you provide the files to be able to load into virtual tabletop programs, which is that's honestly great. So it's a pretty good entry level for anybody. So if anybody out there is looking for content, we'll link to because it's patreon.com/CGRGP. So
CZRPG.
yep, tongue tied.
RPG.
Yeah, CZRPG.
Yeah, that's the one.
And
Yeah.
and if you
And,
search Google, it's the CZRPG, not the Czechoslovakian firearms company.
Yeah, so some people sometimes maybe mix CZ with Czech Republic, but it's nothing related. It's my initials, so that's why.
Yeah,
it's CZRPG.
there's a firearm company from that area that is called CZ. So when I first Googled you guys, it was funny because you guys were the first. Your website came up first, but everything underneath that was the CZ firearms manufacturer and asking like questions like, do they make RPGs, stuff like that. I was like, well, this is just. I'm glad that you guys came up first at least.
Now I got it. So you saying that there's a company in Czech Republic that does like launchers?
So they
weapon
make pistols and rifles, and
launchers?
their company name is they just labeled as CZ.
Okay,
And
okay,
so
cool.
after your entry, it's a bunch of questions like, does CZ make RPGs?
Yeah,
It's like
not the same kind.
exactly.
Cool.
I asked a bunch of people and forgot I was asking a bunch of military friends. I was like, hey, anybody interested in helping me out with some stuff with RPGs? And it was funny because like half the responses that came back were like role-playing games. The other ones were rocket propelled grenades. It's like role-playing games. And then all the guys like, oh, I do like role-playing games as well, but I was hoping that you were going for the grenade rocket propelled grenades. So I was like, I don't really have access to those.
Yeah, no, it better not, right?
Yeah, and I had another friend. He was like, somebody said you do an RPG library. I was like, absolutely. And we've got we're up over 6,000 now. He's like, you have 6,000 RPGs, and he's just like really confused. And I'm like, role playing games. He goes, oh, that makes way more sense. He goes, because I was trying to figure out how you had that many grenades RPGs in your home.
You had an army, right?
Yeah, and the government's not coming after you. And he goes, and it also didn't really make sense having rocket propelled grenades library. He goes,
it's an arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a library; it's an arsenal at that point.
Cool. Yeah. But the Patreon is very recent. So this is the most recent of the stuff from CZRPG. And I'm working with a different cartographer on this one. So you might notice a difference on the map. It's because I'm not doing those maps.
I love that you've subcontracted your Patreon out so that you can focus on your other projects. But it's nice because you're employing somebody, and two, you're still creating you're still putting out content for the people that are backing you on Patreon.
Yeah, but actually, just to be transparent, I brought this cartographer as like a partner on the Patreon, not on CZRPG. So this cartographer has nothing to do with like the business of CZRPG, but he is a partner in the Patreon. So we kind of have a shared profit thing. Nice. So it's like my partner, but on the Patreon only. Yeah, right. Yeah. So anything else that is related to CZRPG is not involved. For now, maybe in the future I might invite him for something because he's really good. Like he's really good.
Yeah, and maybe we can get your sales up enough that you have to bring him on full time.
Yeah, he does awesome maps. I really like his work.
Nice. Yeah, well, hopefully we can get some people signed up to your Patreon, because I think, because the prices are perfectly fine, and if you're running a couple games a month, there's going to be plenty of content to help you run a couple games every month with the maps and little stories and creatures. Even if you don't use the creatures, just getting supporting somebody and getting a map product like that every month is really nice.
And there's a cartographer tier, so if you only want the maps, then it's much cheaper.
Yeah. And then, so I'm reading here, it's like three 30 by 30 maps every month for $3. So you're paying $1 a map, and then a regional map on top of that. And then, there's still more on top of that. So it's not just, even if you just get the three maps, that's a pretty good start for most people.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of briefly talked about it. So you started out with second ed, D&D. And what other games have you gotten into since second ed?
Well, not mentioning all D&Ds, I play all versions, so I won't mention them. But we always play the most updated one. We even played 4E for the whole time. We liked 4E actually, but I know a lot of people didn't. We played Vampire a little bit, Vampire, to see how it was. We played a little bit of a Brazilian RPG I didn't mention, but it's a very small and simple one. It's called 3D&T. I don't know what it means, but it's with D6. It's a D6 system, 3D6 actually. I don't recall the rules very well. And I think that I have played one for a few months. I played Pathfinder with Spheres of Power and Might, which is basically like an add-on or an expansion from another company. I don't recall the name, where you can highly customize Pathfinder. So I found it interesting, but it's still a bit more complex than 5e. Also, the level of power is much higher, and we played a purely political campaign, which was a different vibe. It was like Easter, and our characters were like counselors from the Empire. So it was interesting. We were like, everyone was representing a clan, so it was a bit PvP in a sense. Not exactly PvP, but we had our own interest. Yeah. It was really nice, really interesting. But we mostly played D&D. Almost my whole life it has been D&D. So I haven't experimented a lot of different games.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. The big thing is just finding something that fits with you and your play group. It's why when we get people come to the library, because you can get overwhelmed by the number of games that are available. And I like to tell people, I'm not the GM for everybody. They're not the player for everybody. And D&D may not be the system for everybody. But we can try to help people find the game that is going to fit them a little better, and then it's kind of on them to try to find a group and a GM to play with.
Yeah, exactly. Use your convincing skills out there. Yeah, exactly. Put them to work.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is, I during the 90s, I don't know how many people I was getting to try to play RPGs, and I was like, hey, you want to play Star Wars? And they're like, that's not a role-playing game. I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons though, so
yeah. But it is a role-playing game nowadays, right?
It is. Well, and it was. It released in the D6 Star Wars released in 1987, and basically the entire expanded universe leading up to the prequels was all created based off of that role-playing game, nice. Which is nuts. So there's always been a ton of games since the early, honestly. Shortly after D&D came out, everybody was trying to come out with something, Buffalo, Flying Buffalo, which the founder just passed away a couple months ago of Flying Buffalo. They came out with Tunnels and Trolls to compete with Dungeons and Dragons.
TNT.
Yep. And the funny thing with that one was it was a game that you could play solo, which I always
Mm,
found interesting.
that's nice.
Like, here's a role playing game you can play by yourself. It was kind of a roll dice for choose your own adventure, which was a lot of always fun. And there's just tons of options out there, and I love kind of hearing the background of some of the people that are creating things for RPGs to see where they've gone and how they've gotten into what they do. So how did you get into making maps? So you're doing publishing, and uh, how did you get into making maps for games?
Yeah, it was for my first publication. I needed a map, so someone recommended to me to do the maps myself to save some cost, because when you create your first product, it's a bit scary to spend too much money on it because you don't know how it's going to be. And my first product was exactly like an attempt. I'm gonna see where this leads me. I had no clue where it would lead me anyways at the time, so it was an interesting outcome. But I started to make maps and I liked it, and then I shared them. I made a lot of maps on Incarnate. Once I found Incarnate, I shared them. I got a commission. I did more maps for more products. I started to put products uh, like almost every month, and then all of them had maps. And I found out that people like maps, so I decided to make maps part of my strategy. So almost all of my products, you will see that they offer a lot of maps. And you will actually, I would risk to say that you will not find a lot of products with so many maps. If you take my best-selling product, it's Encounters in Barovia. You can get 280 map versions. Map versions, of course, it's not 280 maps. It's maybe less than 40, but in terms of versions, it's 280 versions in one product. So I offer a lot of maps, and it seems to work because people are buying my stuff. So nowadays it is a core pillar of my strategy.
Thanks.
So this is
I like that, just because again, most people are bad at making maps, and I like that you have the files so that people can load them up into the virtual tabletops, because I've sat down and tried to create maps in Roll20. It's
uh,
I need to get some maps to upload. That way it'll make my life easier. Um,
yeah,
and for everybody that's watching, there'll be no Deadlands this week again. So the last couple of weeks, we had 2 weeks of. We had a week where a couple players couldn't show. Then technical difficulties week prior. Then I spent last week in Honduras, and this week the library will be at Gamma. Well, not the library per se. It'll be a couple of us from the library down representing the library at Gamma. So we'll be talking to game companies and running around with little flyers begging for money and assistance so that people can see us more places.
yeah, no, it's a nice work you do, and yeah, maps they are really really important, and not to everyone, because some people play theater of mind, and then those people probably will not need maps. But there are a lot of people who crave for maps, and I noticed. Sorry.
Absolutely, because I mean, even when I have a theater of the mind campaign that I'm doing, I still will occasionally throw maps and stuff out just so that people can, no matter how well I describe an area, if I can throw a map out really quick for people to see and go, okay, I understand now, everything that I'm saying has a place, and they're not going, oh man, no, I was totally picturing this, oh, I thought this was up in the Northeast, and somebody else is like, oh, I thought it was up in the Northwest, and
Yeah.
they're, everybody else is taking in what I'm saying, but they're not taking it in necessarily the right way, and they're like, oh, well, no, I thought that town was closer, or oh, I thought there was a bigger distance. So without getting like really specific, you can just throw a map out, and then you can do all the rest of the theater of your mind you're not putting anything on the map other than what is already printed there. You're not putting miniatures out or anything. So it can be a really important tool even for the theater of the mind games.
It is a visual reference. So, for example, even in the Kickstarter and also in the Patreon, even for social encounters, we offered maps. So there was one map per encounter. Doesn't matter the type of encounter. We always have a map, even if it's only meant to be social or exploration. So yeah.
Nice. Let's see. So Carissa talked to you in the email. She talked to you about a player character confessional.
Yeah, I'm aware. She mentioned it. I did mention to her that I didn't have specific situation that I caused the TPK, but as a DM, I do have one. I recall to this date, almost 20 years after.
So as a player that caused one in a game you're running,
I oh
or
we
as a
haven't.
GM that you killed off an entire party.
Yes, this we had. I had a situation maybe 20 years ago, and I recall to this date it was 3.5, I guess. And I was running a pre-made adventure, and I spent like hours preparing. I spent money printing the like because at the time it was not we didn't have access to all books, so I kind of printed the PDF. I just printed the PDF to even in color, and then okay, so spent hours all this on adventure starts. They need to reach a castle, and they were level 17, so it was high level play. But in the path to the castle, there was a camp with palisades, and they were like, I said, "What do you do?" And the wizard said, "Fireball on the gate." And then I said, "I mean, are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, fireball on the gate." And then, okay, maybe roll intelligence check. Then he rolled a two, and then, well, okay, fireball on the gate. And then the problem is that that camp had high level enemies. There were some weird chimera beast, huge creatures. It was a mess. It was very powerful enemies in there, and well, they came out and killed everyone. Sorry, there was no way to make it different at that point. Uh, I give options.
and, and that's all you can do sometimes because I always tell people it's never the player that ruins a game, it's the GM, but sometimes it's the dice that because you gave them every opportunity, but ultimately if you wipe that party, it's still a fun story. I guarantee you those players probably are still will bring that up, be like, oh man, there was this time I was a wizard and I blew the gates off of a keep and just everything poured out and murdered us all. So it didn't ruin the game. Definitely gave some people some wonderful stories. I love moments like that. I also love it when a player is separated from everybody else and is doing something stupid and nobody at the table can stop them because they're
Yeah,
not there to tell the character no. And that happened in a Star Wars game. They kept ignoring a player at the table, and his character kind of wandered off. They're doing nefarious things as members of the Rebel Empire, and then he can't locate them, so he goes basically to the nearest Imperial office to ask if they can help locate his friends who are
the
all
rebels.
known members of the rebellion, and he's not. So they were like, "Oh my god, did you?" So yeah, the planet goes into lockdown, and everybody gets hunted down by stormtroopers.
Wow,
They're like,
that's a mess. That's a mess. Yeah. As a player, we didn't. I don't recall any specific story like this, but this one I remember very clearly because it was. I couldn't believe it. Like I mean, I think the logic of the player was, I am we are level 17. Nothing can hurt us. We are very powerful.
see,
I am a wizard. I have spells.
yeah, that works in 5th edition D&D. Once if you're level 17, there's not a lot in the game that can really mess with you. But in D&D 3.5, you had epic levels. You could go to level 30. So level 20, there was still a lot that was in the game that could just really mess you up.
Yeah,
So it was a super. I really enjoyed a lot of things about D&D 3 and 3.5. Because you did have the books and everything that really
yeah.
allowed you to ramp all the way up into those epic levels up to level 30 and
40, even 40.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you
Um,
wanted.
I didn't run too many people. I didn't run across too many people that played that long. But I
Yeah,
mean,
it takes
yes,
a lot of time.
exactly. Yeah, and I think by then most people probably murdered their own characters. So you have a player that has a epic a player character confessional from 20 years ago, uh, blowing up the castle gates and unleashing that all. So that player
Yeah.
would be awesome to have him record his character confessional of his wizard that wiped the party with one fireball.
Yeah, exactly. So that was
Do you
interesting.
still play with the same people?
Oh, that was a different group. So so this was more or less when I wandered from. I don't recall what happened, but I got something happened in life, and I got into another group. And in this pause, so before I actually paused, I played with another group, even more than one. But then after this also stopped, and the pause actually came. And when I met my wife, I was not playing TTRPG. And and then after maybe 1 2 years after I met her, then I got back into TTRPG, and this was actually a problem because she met me and I didn't play this, and then I started to play this thing, and I wanted to meet with my friends to play TTRPG, and then she got at the beginning of the marriage, we had to deal with that situation where like maybe some other guys could have gone through, the guy who wants to go to the bar every week and drink beer with a friend, and then the wife doesn't like it. In my case, it was a bit more nerdy. It was like play the idea with the friends. So, yeah, but
I I kind of
nowadays
relate.
it's all good.
Yeah, I relate to that because I really wasn't playing when I met my wife, and it, you know uh, before we got married, I started playing again. But we were at least dating. When we were dating, I was incredibly nerdy, but I wasn't playing any RPGs. And we were together for a little while, and then started having people hang out in my room to use their imagination for hours at a time.
Yeah,
Then we got
nice,
married, and she's dealt with it for almost 18 years now.
nice, very good, cool.
Let's see. So, Amazing Encounters and Places is funded, and um, is it out to backers yet?
Not there, not yet. Sorry. So we're working on finalizing the PDF. The writing is done. Editing is maybe 70%. So we're still like working on it, but it should, like, I would like to have it in April. So the PDF at least, right? The
Yeah,
PDF, and then once the PDF is there, I can put it, make it available and send it to the printers and start working on print on demand. I want to have it on print on demand as well on Right for RPG, Amazon. But the backers will get the offset printed book, which should be a better quality than print on demand, right?
yeah. Let us know when it goes to print on demand. We'll put the info out, and then uh, we would look forward to anything that you any new products, because you said you're already got the ideas for your next yeah, your next Kickstarter,
Yeah.
which will
I have ideas for maybe a few more, like a few years of Kickstarter.
good,
Because it's
great.
a brand, right? I want to create a brand around it, like the Amazing D&D. So all of them will have amazing somewhere in the title, but the titles will be different. Yeah.
Nice.
So the
So
next one is Amazing and Extraordinary Encounters.
Amazing and Extraordinary Encounters. So this one
Yeah.
was Amazing Encounters and Places. So
Yeah.
um, no, I'm
I
looking
was
forward to
recommended,
it.
yeah, I was recommended not to use volumes because some people think that if you need volume one to have volume two, and this is not actually true in this case. But then I don't want to risk it. I don't want
Yeah,
people think that they need one to have the other, right? So
yeah. It's like there's upsides and downsides to doing the volumes, because the upside is you get somebody that'll get your second edition or your volume two and go, oh man, there's another one, I have to get, I have to get it, and that's
yeah,
kind of a good thing. But then you get other people go, oh well, I didn't get the first one, so I'll skip this one. So
Yeah.
For the most part, I'll agree with everybody of staying away from the volumes. Certain companies can really pull it off, like Kobold Press does a lot of volume-based stuff, but I think most of the people know getting into that, they can grab one book, and because it'll be like Toma Monsters Volume 1, 2, and 3. So you can grab, any one of the three, and you just got tons of monsters. But if you're doing encounters, maps,
Yeah.
and settings, somebody goes, "Oh, am I missing something if I didn't get the first one?"
Exactly.
So I like the idea that you're going. You've got a one word that you're going to keep. So amazing is going to be your
Yes.
your throughput, and then you're just going to change what the amazing whatever. Yeah.
And actually, the pre-order is still up on Backer Kit, so people can still get the chance to get the offset book, because I haven't sent to printer, so anyone pre-ordering will still get the offset book. And the whole idea here is to later down the road, maybe if the plan works, is to release the amazing world, because you know what, there's going to be amazing places, right? Always with encounters. Amazing settlements, amazing, maybe even afterwards NPCs, amazing items. I can do amazing pretty much anything, right? Like monsters or anything. But then at some point, I would like to have the amazing world that would use the previously released content, and then create a setting. That would be the plan. But I mean, there's like I need to go step by step, one thing at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it is kind of cool because it gives you it does give you that way to jump off and do more with everything. Somebody people sending me questions to ask, and some of them we've already covered. So
Nice.
No, I like like I said, I like the idea, because you can use it as a jumping off point. So you can do all your different settings, and then if you want to go back and you've got a big pile of magic items, you could go back and do a magic items book or tome. And if you get into cyberpunk or sci-fi stuff, you could even do an amazing setting for that as well. So it doesn't limit you. And if you just
that is a good idea, actually. But it would be for more years. But this is a good idea because some people are really into that, right? Into the sci-fi and stuff.
Yeah. There is a decent amount of sci-fi and cyberpunk players out there. The crew that worked for Wizards of the Coast that did the D20 modern setting, they no longer work for Wizards of the Coast, and they're modifying 5e for a new modern setting. So I wasn't a huge fan of D20 modern. I thought it was a little clunky, but that just happens with most modern style settings.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do, but I think most places within the tabletop RPG world, we're always lacking that people making good maps, because you can find tons of free maps out there, but a lot of them are the scales are wrong. They're really generic. Getting a good quality product that can actually enhance your game versus something that somebody could have scrawled on their grid paper as a teenager.
Yeah. That's something I haven't mentioned, which is I think it's important, because you probably have a lot of people who are creators that follow you and all this stuff. My maps, when they are not into a PDF product, so for example, if you buy any of my products PDFs, the maps that come with them, they don't have a commercial license, but all the map packs and the individual maps I sell, those have a commercial license, and they are very affordable. So for example, most of my individual maps cost $2, meaning if you're trying to release your first products, it's a small adventure, there's a fight in the forest, I have tons of forest maps, you can get a map for $2. So this is really nice for I have even some that are free, but it's not a whole lot. And even if it's not free, like $2 is very affordable for even people starting to publish.
That's actually pretty awesome. I like that. That is really good to know. So I will share your info with people that are putting product, especially because most of your stuff is very fantasy based right now. So
Yeah, for now, yeah.
yeah, so I know people that are working on projects that will be happy to throw a few dollars towards some quality maps to put into a book.
But you know what? If you have wilderness stuff that is from a modern system, my stuff can work as well. For example,
Yeah,
there is a modern TTRPG, and you need something in the forest. You can use a fantasy forest. They look like normal forests, most
yeah,
of them.
especially if anybody that's working on like a post-apocalyptic style game, because
Yes.
you're going to be going through wildernesses a lot, and you may run into villages that are medieval in in nature, because
Yeah.
it's a good throwback.
Yeah.
But I'm also sure that because you do commission work, so if somebody buys
Yeah.
a handful of those maps and needs one or two on top of that, they can hit you up to fill out their portfolio for their game.
Yeah. I
So
haven't been doing a lot of commission lately, but always open to at least talk because I'm lacking some time. But
yeah,
maybe I can find the time if the project is nice, right?
yeah. Time. Oh yeah,
Uh,
we always need more of it. So.
yeah.
Hey, but it's been
Exactly.
wonderful talking to you. I'm looking
Likewise.
forward to seeing more from you. And so for everybody that's paying attention at home, you're watching a rebroadcast, because when we attempted to go live, Streamlabs. So I was having technical difficulties because I just got home late last night, and the wife was trying to help out, and we had some weird technical issues as we tried to go live, and we were dropping like 80% of frames, which would have made this unwatchable. So we decided to stop the stream, record, and then I'll do some minor clips, and you'll see that we've had all kinds of video and weird other issues. So it has been an interesting day of feeling like I don't know exactly what I'm doing anymore, because nothing has worked.
This is IT. You can blame IT technology. It's fine.
Yeah. Technology brings us all these wonderful things. Like I'm able to just sit here and have an awesome conversation with a man making maps out of Brazil for games
Yeah.
that are that people are playing around the globe, and yet at the same time, all the awesome things that technology brings us, it punches us in the gut from time to time.
Exactly. When they don't work, it really sucks.
Yeah, and you get used to it. You're like, oh man, this works, and as you try it one day, it's like, oh nope, not gonna work today. You wanted to read your email? No.
Yeah.
So
But, again, I want to thank you. It was really nice to talk to you as well, and I think the work you do to come up with the library, that's interesting. And then when I first learned about you, I actually thought this was a digital library, but now I understand it's an actual physical library. So this is cool.
Physical library. We've got about 6,000 books, and we travel at
Wow.
events around North America, and we get people excited about playing. And then some of the things we also do is we talk to people how they can use role-playing games to work with like at-risk teens or veterans with PTSD. We've had psychiatrists and psychologists come talk to us. I've taught a handful of mental health professionals how to run role-playing games. So there's a lot of cool things that have kind of come out of the library, tertiary. So still doing our primary thing of sharing what role-playing games are at events and getting people to play is our core thing. But all these other things that have happened because of it. So because of the pandemic, we started doing these little chats on Sundays with people that are within the industry, and this has been awesome because we get to share with everybody, game designers that are making small games. We've talked to people that have made big names in the industry. And we talked to people that have made music. A guy from the UK, he only like 6 months prior, had played his first role-playing game, and he was like, man, this is really fun. And he goes, why is there no music? and then he just started making music for RPGs, and it was great.
Nice.
So he started out making like horror themed music because he said there's just not enough, like, everybody wants to use the soundtrack from Halloween or Friday the 13th. He's like, it's you know those, and you have a preconceived notion of what's going to pop out with those. So he made some horror based music beds for people playing horror games, which I was like, this is awesome.
Nice. And by the way, so once the book is out, I'll find a way to drop it in your hands, not personally, of course, because this would be difficult, but I'll make sure it lands in your library, because I think it's going to be a very, very beautiful book, and I really believe it. So I think it's nice that to be able to say that my book is along with other 6,000 books in the Alexandria library. That's cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And and for everybody that's interested in pre-ordering a copy, because he's, like you said, it's almost done. You can go to czrpg.com, and then it's in one of the drop-down menus. Go to the Kickstarter.
Kickstarter.
Yep, go to the Kickstarter, and you can do the pre-order, which will allow you, because it's you have it in, I think it popped up for pounds for me.
Yes, it's in pounds, and one other way to do it, if you find it easier, is I have theamazingdnd.com as well. I have a domain for this one. So the Amazing D&D up top here, this is a domain, and in the domain you can access the pre-orders as well. So I have two websites. One is for the brand, and the other one is for the company. So, but the website is in construction, so you only see some pretty pictures for now. But I will put some actual content later.
So it's The Amazing D.
The Amazing D&D, exactly like this.
So so you're it's just off screen on mine. So, but is it D and D or D in D?
D&D like it's here, like with an N, you see?
Okay.
Exactly like that. So it's The Amazing D&D. Yeah. So
awesome. So what are the best ways for people to get a hold of you?
I would
besides
say
your website.
I am on Twitter, so CZEU. This is very complicated. It's better if you put a link or something, but it's CZEUch1. CZEUCH1, and I am the same tag on Facebook, and I am also the same tag on Instagram, but Twitter is what I use the most, let's say.
Okay, we'll try to put the links into the video as we push it out through our different video outlets. So we'll rebroadcast this up onto Twitch, and then tomorrow it should be available on YouTube. So what we're trying to do is upload the video the following day on YouTube, so it's easier to share, because we know some people like, I just don't want to go to Twitch. I'm like, okay. So we'll throw them up on YouTube, and then I'm going to start throwing them up on like Library and other video sharing sites, just so that all the information is out there for people. So again, nice. Wonderful chatting with you, and look forward to what you got going on with all these awesome projects, and keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome stuff.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Have a nice Sunday.
Good night, or good day.
Yeah. Cool.